Good morning. This podcast is Peace and Lineage Part 2. Part 1 was an inquiry into the nature of war and conflict from its most expansive levels, that could be war between blocs like the communist bloc or the free world, or war between nations, all the way down to the interior conflict between mind and body that we ourselves experience within ourselves. I describe those as intention and manifestation, and the inability oftentimes to realize and manifest what we intend or desire to do seamlessly and without having the struggle against a resistance within us. This capacity to directly and immediately encounter within conflict is what makes it possible for us to ultimately find a path to bring about the end of war and conflict globally or internationally or locally or with family or with friends or with our husbands and wives, because that inner experience is easily recognized as undesirable, that we are constantly seeking ways to bring that to an end, to resolve that, so that when we intend or desire to do something or to create something, that resistance, that my own personal resistance, is no longer against me or in conflict with me or at war with me. So this was part one, was looking into this reality of war brought down to the most microcosmic level, that is within myself, and then a study of what is the path and what is the means by which we can bring about the end of this interior war. Once we know that, I'm sure we'll be able to apply the same principles to all of our relationships, both individually and among nations and institutions. The primary thrust of this idea that we are able eventually to bring an end to the inner war and inner conflict was focused on a notion of resemblance or identity with our original design and purpose, with our Creator, or for non-theists, with an absolute and infinite all. And what I had read toward the end of the podcast, the prior one, part one, was the statement, within God there is no disharmony between internal and external characteristics. I described this to mean that within God, intent and manifestation are perfectly harmonized, that there's no gap whatsoever, not even a temporal gap. Not to mention that there's not resistance between intent and manifestation, but there's not even a temporal gap. They are one and the same. And if we ourselves are the creation of such an entity, then we have that nature, we have that, we resemble that state. For non-theists, we are within the state of the infinite all, in which this non-war, non-conflict between intent and manifestation can be apprehended in different ways, different from systems or traditions of theological faith. For example, a tree or a dog or a horse, intention and manifestation are not separate. They are harmonized. And so that we ourselves just need to recognize our identity in the theistic sense, that because there is no harmony, no disharmony in God, therefore we can anticipate there can be no disharmony in us. We are derivative, we are resemble, we are part of, we are the intention of that God that is characterized in that way. Or from the non-theistic point of view, we exist within the all, within the infinite all, that is so characterized by this non-division or non-conflict or non-war between intention and manifestation. So the second part of what I read was that the human ideal to achieve oneness in mind and body can be realized, and this particular writer says only when people completely possess God's true love. The other way of looking at it is only when people completely attain the original identity by which we are created, namely resembling this prior statement, there is no disharmony between intention and manifestation in the ultimate, and therefore it's possible for us to attain the exact resonance or the exact way of being that derives either from having been created as such by a loving God or existing within the reality of the all in which that division doesn't exist. The part that I didn't get to cover and why I wanted to move on to a part 2 of this podcast has to do with something that was really enjoyable and really provocative for me, and it's the very end of the reading that I had read that sparked these set of thoughts. So I'm gonna do the whole paragraph, but it's the final point that is what's launching part 2 here. The whole paragraph reads, "The human ideal to achieve oneness of mind and body can be realized only when people completely possess the true love of God." Okay, I already qualified that to expand beyond the theistic limitation. Then it goes on to read, "The biblical verse, 'Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God,' illustrates this point. Peacemakers are persons whose mind and body are in unity, reflecting the true love of God." So in this passage, where the writer gives the enormously encouraging affirmation or assertion that we can, in fact, end the war within ourselves, end the resistance to our higher intentionality. This is hopeful beyond measure, really encouraging, and can make the work of days much less burdensome, knowing that we're progressing towards such a desirable state. Goes on to say that it's our identity as an extension of God's love or resembling the all, and then bolsters that claim by referencing a particular biblical verse. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Peacemakers are persons whose mind and body are in unity, centering on the true love of God. So, in this particular metaphysics, our oneness with the all is described by Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, when he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." So the concept here is that when we unite with the complete love of God, we'll be able to end the war within ourselves. Then such people, whom the writer says are people whose mind and body are in unity, such people will be called children of God. And thus I came up with the title, Peace and Lineage. When we become peacemakers, blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers are people whose mind and body are in oneness. We are no longer a walking package of conflict and war, the way we are now and the way everybody we meet are. Everybody we meet are full of wanting to do X and having our others part of ourselves resist not doing it. Today I'm going to read 3 pages. Today I'm going to not eat a gallon of ice cream. Today I'm going to keep my mind clean and pure, whatever your intention is. And then every day, at the end of the day, it's been a battle that is just a burden, that is horrible. How nice it would be that every time we intended to do something, the responsive and manifest side of ourselves, our physical body, would say, "That's great, let's do it." We walk it, and we walk it with ease. That's how life should be, how we want to be. And that's what is identified in this passage as a peacemaker, someone whose mind and body are in unity. That's fantastic. And so when Jesus is describing in the Beatitudes that particular quality, a peacemaker, then those people will be called children of God. For any hearers who are not familiar with the Beatitudes, they're basically 8 qualities that Jesus described in Matthew 5, and he's describing a good type of human being. The first one is blessed are the poor of spirit. The others are blessed are those who mourn. This is a kind of someone who you won't exercise hostility if there's any decency in you at all. Someone who mourns is someone who attracts your care and concern and desire to console. Blessed are the meek. They're not arrogant, they're not puffy, they're not pretending to know stuff, they're not trying to dominate with how bright they are, how handsome they are, how rich they are. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those individuals who can't stand to see the oppression of others, who can't stand to see a deceiver make his way through innocent and trusting people. They're righteous. They're troubled by injustice. They're troubled by racism. They're troubled by sexism. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. I could go on. Each one of these we could talk about these forever. But you can see that the list, this 8 type of people who Jesus is describing, are blessed. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure of heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. And blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness. That you simply want to see what's right. You simply want to see a reality in which people are not exploiting and tormenting and hurting one another. And on top of that, you're persecuted for that, as we all well know is the nature of life in the world. So these are 8 types of people whom Jesus describes as blessed. They're poor in spirit. That needs unpacking, of course. They mourn. They're meek. They hunger and thirst for righteousness. They're merciful. They're pure in heart. They're peacemakers. And they are persecuted for goodness' sake. And then for each one of these groups, he says what is going to happen to these groups. For the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. On earth, their conditions may be downtrodden. They may be feeling the weight of life, this injustice of life, the struggles of life. But theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Those who mourn shall be comforted. The meek shall inherit the earth. It's kind of a flip in each case. They're meek. There's all these people riding around in their yachts and Ferraris. They're running them over at red lights. They're bouncing them out bouncing them off there, driving through. They're the meek ones. They will inherit the earth. They will inherit what all these, bad actors are clutching after and gain control in the current circumstance. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness shall be satisfied. The merciful shall obtain mercy. The pure of heart shall see God. The peacemakers shall be called children of God. I read that already before. And the ones who are persecuted, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Every one of those has an outcome that Jesus describes awaits them as a result of the beautiful quality of their character, their blessedness. But of all of these, it's so that what I read earlier about war and peace, about mind and body, about the resolution of conflict, and then suddenly the reference to the Beatitudes, in which it says that knowing the love of God, who's perfectly one between mind and body, between intention and manifestation, then that is, we attain that by recognizing our status as a child of God, and then this biblical passage is referenced. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. None of the other blessed types are bound to God, even by the oneness of being a child. There is no more attractive center of receiving the love of anyone than the child. The parent's love for the child is infinite. It's the most concentrated upon thing that parents do is want to pour themselves out into their children, want to give every opportunity to their children, want to see their children flourish and grow. It is the farthest reaching version of intimacy, that what's actually we're our parents' own flesh and blood. And of all the many fantastic qualities that Jesus identifies, the poor in spirit, they get a kingdom. The mourn they shall be comforted. The meek get the earth. The hunger thirst for righteousness, they'll have that satisfied. The merciful, they'll receive mercy. The pure of heart shall see God. Just see God. There's still a distance there in a certain way. I'm not saying they won't become one with God, but in Jesus' account, the persecuted for righteousness' sake, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. They get a kingdom. But of all of these, only one are called children of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. They're the direct lineage, the direct stuff, the flesh and blood of God himself, God herself. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. In other words, I recognize that person, that is God's son. I recognize that person, that is God's daughter. And what is the point of recognition? Mind and body are one. Intention and manifestation are one. It's a figure with no discord, no disharmony, no conflict. You're not at war with myself. I intend to do something good. It happens with ease. That person is always good. I recognize that person. That's a child of God. Not one who's poor in spirit, not one who mourns, not one who's meek. This one who's good with ease, always good. No war, no conflict. That person is a peacemaker. They're always able to resolve peace because they are a walking version of the resolution of peace. Peace from the war that every one of us carry. Those are the children of God. So that's the second part, or the second set of thoughts on this. I recognize that it has a bit of a Christian flavor and a bit of a theistic flavor, but its truths are universal, expandable. It would just take a little time to do it, to have the voice in every major spiritual tradition. But it's there. It's the oneness with God that's uniquely described by the individual who has finally attained a state where we are no longer battling against our highest and finest purposes. Okay, that's that. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.